Welcome to The Act of Coaching, the podcast from Ag Leadership. We're a leadership and performance coach training company focused on developing exceptional leadership coaches for modern times. My name is Phil Askew, and each week on this show, I'll be joined by a member of our brilliant alumni, putting a voice to their very own hero's journey story. Our hope is that listening in to real-world stories of everyday people who have chosen coaching as a vocation will serve to demystify things and help you decide if this incredible vocation is something that calls to you too. So with that, let's meet this week's guest. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you on The Act of Coaching. And like with all the other shows, all the other conversations, very first thing I like to do is to ask you if you have a sense of your niche, have a sense of the people that you're in service of, and what is it that you help them with if you do?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is such a treat to get to have a conversation with you. Niche is a difficult one for me. I struggle to answer that question. I actually thought about reaching out to my clients and going, okay, hey guys, how would you describe yourselves? I do know that the people that do really well with me are folks who are interested in making a change in their life. They don't necessarily know what that change is. They're very interested in growing and looking at themselves potentially differently through their own lenses, not somebody else's, right? Disrupting the stories that they've been given, disrupting the scripts that they've taken on as their own, and pretty much discovering who they really are on the inside. One of my favorite stories of one of my clients is a woman that I met who was about to walk out of a marriage that they equally knew was broken. And for the very first time, she was going to be paying her own utilities and paying her own rent and doing all of the things. Fast forward 18 months, she has moved twice. She's gotten promoted. She's been awarded. She's raising her teenage daughter and involved in roller derby. It was amazing.
Wow. So I'm really curious actually to ask you, so oftentimes when I'm working with clients as a mentor, like helping them build their practice and what have you, I'll be really straightforward and have them say, what are the raw, visceral pains do you think you help the people that you work with overcome? What is it that you help them be with and overcome?
The raw, visceral pain that I get to walk beside them is grief, left behind, lack of self-identity. They have lots of identities that have been given to them, but getting to know themselves deeply, that's where the real magic comes out. They get to discover who they're really meant to be, and the pain that they have to shed is the disappointment of their past lives, if you will, whether it was family or work or whatever that might be.
It comes in many forms, isn't it, grief? It's when you said that, it had me think about some clients I've worked with in the past who have been living someone else's perception of what their life should be, and in a way kind of feeling some grief for the life that they could have or should have. And it feels like that maybe that's what you help them do, is to find their own story and to not to perpetuate someone else's story of what their life should be like.
Yeah. What is the something more in their life that they're meant to discover?
Oh, that's a lovely way of putting it. Yeah. I hope that line is on your website, because it should be. It's a good one. So that's really clear. That's really clear. I really get a strong sense of who your people are, your target audience, as it were. Something I'm always curious about as well is early life. Oftentimes we are interested in people, us coaches, interested in people, of course. It'd be crazy if we weren't. We'd be in the wrong profession. But I was just curious if you had a sense of any sort of formulative early memories or influential adults that kind of had you get curious about other people, or whether you were just always born with a curiosity for people.
I think the lifestyle that my parents brought us through. So my parents were both in the military when they met. And so we traveled a lot. We moved all over the world. By the time I was in high school, I had lived in 14 different houses and been to 12 different schools. That's
Wow.
by the time I was a freshman, right? And I don't know if I was always meant to do this. However, my family likes to tell me that I can make more friends in an airport than anybody they've ever met.
Wow. Yeah. I usually shut down in airports. I'm just like headphones on, everything. That's so interesting. Yeah. Would you say you're an extrovert or introvert? Do you?
Absolutely an introvert.
Oh, really? And all of that changed when you were younger as well. So like 14 different houses, did you say?
So I didn't know any different. It was the way I grew up. I came to understand that kind of instability really creates a lot of loss that you don't even know that you're missing out on. There was no such thing as childhood friendships. There was no such thing as home, right? Home was where you hung your hat. And there is loss in that. But the whole globe is an opportunity, right? When I graduated from high school, I couldn't wait to get on the road again. It is how I had been raised. There were places I hadn't seen yet. I wanted to go see them. Even when
It's a big world, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. There were so many places I hadn't been yet. So as a child, I had lived in Germany and the Philippine Islands. I'm not sure that you could find two more different countries than those two.
Yeah.
Because they are quite different. So I really loved that I have the nomadic spirit. And because I think it brings a sense of curiosity. It brings a sense of wonder at what's next to be discovered.
Coaching is so revolves around, doesn't it? It's what's possible. Who are you beyond the confines of your expectations of yourself? Or, how can you find a new perspective on things?
What really interests you? And then how do you lean into that? Where's the magic you really want to discover and uncover?
Wow. Coaching's pretty good, isn't it? It's a pretty good thing. I'm so surprised the other day I was talking to somebody and they weren't a coach, but they've known me a long time. And I don't know about you, but I always make this assumption that people understand what coaching is. They know how cool it is, what it is, and what's involved. But obviously they don't. And it's kind of like, wow, okay. So part of the reason for this podcast is to normalize coaching and to shine a light on things. And so oftentimes, I suppose that leads me also to the point that, we often come across coaching as I'm going to get a coach for myself because I feel as if I want some perspective or I want to fix this thing and do something about this, but I don't feel able to. I don't have the knowledge or the ability to separate out from self to get a new perspective to do that. How did you discover coaching? How did coaching find you, if you like? Was it that you found a coach to do some work with you, or how did that come about?
A seed was planted about 20 years ago when I was helping a woman get her certification, right? So all us coach trainees are looking for volunteers to help them learn and discover and craft their trade. And I was interested at that point. And I've always been really fascinated by psychiatry and psychology and how people work, right? What goes on in their brains and their hearts and that sort of thing. I'd always been very curious. However, like many people, I had been deterred. It was like a physician heal by itself. You're interested because you need help, you need therapy, because not everybody is going to really speak to you. I've had therapy throughout my adult life. But what I found really helpful was this idea that my past is my past. And you can deal with it, you can make friends with it, you can do all the things, but the past doesn't define the future. My parents got 18 years with me, and then the rest of it's up to me. A few years ago, when I got the opportunity to become a coach and go to the training, they said, hey, we're looking for people to do this at my organization. And I signed up and I was like, oh, welcome to coaching. We look at the future. We don't do therapy. We acknowledge the past, but today we deal with our today's relationship with your past. And how does that influence your future? And I came to coaching because I got the opportunity. And I found my people and my tribe and such a sense of belonging. It was a great place to be kind.
And it is constantly expanding as well, isn't it? It never gets dull or boring. I think that's the thing. Like every single client even when you got a really specific niche and you've worked with what you consider on paper to be very similar people for so many years, every single human being is different. They're comprised of so many different aspects. And I think that's the variety and diversity I love about working with clients and people, is just the fact that no two sessions are the same and no two clients are the same, are they?
Not at all.
Hmm.
Not at all.
And so you went through the ACT leadership training, doing the certification with ACT. What were some highlight moments that you remember from doing that? It might be about the people that you were doing it with, or it might be about some of the tools. What do you recall?
Day one. On day, we were given a lot of prep. And I really appreciated that. There was a lot of, here's what's going to happen. This is what it looks like. It's virtual. Be sure to bring topics, right? You're going to bring topics. Didn't even know what a topic was at the time, but bring things you want to talk about, challenges you want to work on. And being that person in the airport that never met a stranger on day when everybody is virtual and they're all hesitant, do we stick our neck out or whatever? I'll volunteer. The demonstration was on what coaching was. And so the first thing that they do is they introduce you to this idea of the difference between a mentor and a coach. And Mike Hutchins, the co-founder of ACT, spoke first. And so my topic was, I'm looking at retirement in a few years and I really don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't know what that means for me. I need something to do. So Mike is like, he gives me all of these things. And it was so fantastic because he was like, go on a retreat, do a spa thing, and here's some books to read. And, I was like, oh, let me write all this down. It was just fantastic. I was like, oh, this is great, right? Yeah. And then Robin Rose got a hold of me, and she is a master coach. And by the time that she was done, she didn't really do a lot of speaking, but by the time that she was done demonstrating what coaching really was, she had me in probably one of the most vulnerable spaces I've ever been in my life. And I realized retirement meant that I was going to become irrelevant. I knew right then that coaching really had the power to transform people and their lives. Because finding out what the problem is, finding out what the source is that you really want to work on, that's so key, right? To growth and to get the most value out of coaching. The people that I got to work with, they were part of DoD, they were part of academia, they were people looking for a new career. There were so many amazing and interesting people. But the way the program is set up is you get to know each other. Our cohort still meets on a regular basis. We still are tied to each other years later. We support each other, we reach out to each other, and we just value each other. You get very vulnerable inside this space, and you learn trust across the miles, across the video. One of my favorite experiences was writing the letter to my inner critic, being my inner guide, and actually reframing my relationship with my inner critic. And I got the opportunity to say, hey, I see you and you are valuable. So all of the negative, air quotes, negative emotions or parts of ourselves, they have a place. They have a valuable place. So learning that and learning to recognize that we can see all of our parts, the good and what is often labeled the bad. And that was really brought home to me in this course.
Because it's all welcome, isn't it? When we're in the course, one thing is that we bring real life situations, real life challenges to the coaching. And that way we become incredible coaches because we're working with real topics rather than just play acting. But then we get to see how other people are responding to how we're coaching and how we're working with those new skills and tools with them also. So it's like a real double whammy in a good way.
It really is. It really is. When people talk about being authentic, going through a coaching program such as ACT does so well, you really get to see people. You get to see people and you get to see yourself be accepted and welcomed.
Yeah, where else do people listen so well apart from coach training schools? I think once you've learned to listen really well, it's almost like it becomes something that you just can't switch it off moving forwards. I find, that ability to listen well with deep curiosity.
Yes. Yes.
You completed the LPCC, which is obviously our certification course. Those tools, they stay with us, like I was saying. So there's some ways of listening, some ways of asking powerful questions, and all manner of different, a whole range of skills and tools. I'm wondering how those show up first of all, in your professional life. Like, how are you different now than you were before the course? But also equally, maybe on a personal level, I'm actually probably more fascinated by how are those skills and tools showing up in your personal relationships? Because oftentimes it influences those in a really great way.
I completely agree. For about a year, I worked with a person that was absolutely confrontational. The entire experience with them was they were always late. Their needs came first. Their situational awareness was completely missing. They blew through 20-mile-an-hour signs and oblivious that they even existed. On a military installation, speeds are, they're important. But it was interesting how I could step back and see the person where they were, to literally meet them where they are at. And also being able to listen for them, validate them, and then speak on my own behalf. And also how not to engage in their drama. And somebody who seems to not carry the same values that I do, that was really hard to actually meet that person where they were at and become friends. It's not my responsibility. Their personality is not my responsibility. And the same is true inside of my family, right? Learning to disengage in the drama, what is really going on beneath the surface, and listening deeply to where they are coming from and what hurt are they feeling. Because at the end of the day, we're all seeing our own story. We're seeing our own timelines. We're seeing our own agendas, right? And much of the time we have blinders on to what's going on in other people's lives. And being able to just listen and step off my own agenda, step off my own priorities, if you will, and to just hear them, it has changed the relationships across all my family members. Although I will say that my daughter told me the other day that she appreciates that I'm not trying to coach her anymore.
I think when we first start, we discover these fantastic skills and tools, and we're like, right, who am I going to coach next without permission? Because they see a shift, right? They see a shift in how we show up. So it's like, you're asking me more questions and you're leaving more space to listen to the answers. And even though that feels great and refreshing, it also feels different coming from you. So it's like, what's going on? But I think we acclimatize, don't we?
Fortunately.
Yeah. I do remember sometime when I did some coach training a while ago, I was assisting a course and they'd all just discovered these incredible coach training skills. And then because we're in England, we went down the pub afterwards and we all got together, a bit of a social thing. Everyone was asking me coachy questions. I was like, no, we can pause now. We can stop and just have a nice drink. That's fine. Yeah. Because there's a context for coaching, isn't there? There is a sense that, yes, even though you know these skills and tools, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go about being Phil the coach all the time or Maureen the coach. There is a time and a place, and there's a container and a vessel for this work.
There really is. There really is. And they'll let you know when you cross that boundary.
They certainly will, especially your nearest and dearest. What I would love to hear is so you might call it like the high dream or you with a magic wand, or a 10 out of 10 projection into the future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time as Maureen the coach?
In 5 years' time, I have incorporated, so I have this dream right now. I actually started my doctorate in strategic leadership. And at my age, that's saying something. However, what I really wanted to, Rice University did a study regarding coaching and emerging leaders. And essentially, it was about college students and how they show up in the world. And I'm doing some research now on the integration of how to create coaching and leadership development. So it's evolving and it's percolating. But the idea is to create a program that actually allows young adults, teenagers, early 20s to enter into a program where there is coaching and there is leadership development that allows them to figure out how do they want to be in the world, right? Rather than just taking the first job that pays, but how do they choose a career, a path that centers on who they are, having just been told for 18 years who they are, right? What are the narratives that they've been given? What are the identities that they're walking into this brave new world with? So my idea is to create something that speaks to that. At the same time, I would love to be a mentor coach and a supervisory coach to help bring other coaches along so that they can lean into their own space and feel confident.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow. What a legacy to leave as well. I think sometimes we don't necessarily think about the legacy we want to leave, but we hope that we will leave a legacy. Yeah. And I think doing this work, being coaches, it's inevitable that we're touching lives all the time, and our clients' interactions with us and their stories are touching our lives as well. So I think we're evolving together and just making the world a better place, really, if that doesn't sound too cheesy, but I think that's what's happening. What a big dream you have. Yeah. And you'll no doubt achieve that. It's only 5 years. Yeah. But a lot can happen.
Yes.
So there's been a really lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed hearing from you and listening to your story. And how can people find you? How can they reach out and connect with you if they feel like they want to have a conversation?
The best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. Keeping it simple, keeping it easy. I'm available on LinkedIn. In fact, I'm creating a try it with me first. Try that first hour with me first, just to get the experience of getting coached, to see if we're a good match. It's not always a good match, and that's okay.
And I think that's so important. It's like try before you buy kind of thing, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
It sounds like you're being really generous giving away an hour. That's amazing. So people should definitely come your way.
I find that I don't necessarily get the breakthroughs in 30 minutes. I think it takes a little bit to get to know people, let them get to know you a little bit. And then it's about 30 minutes of actual coaching.
That's really cool. So yeah, if you're interested in connecting with Maureen, please do. She'd be very welcoming. So thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation, Maureen. And yeah, I'll speak to you again soon, no doubt.
I really look forward to it. I always enjoy my conversations with you, Phil.
If you'd like to train to be a professional coach, why don't you check out actleader.com. That's www.actleader.com. On our website, we have a ton of information that can really help you get clarity on the exact right course for you. We also have articles that go into detail about the different aspects of coaching, how to apply it, and why it's a wonderful thing. Look forward to seeing you soon.